Um, this is a national group. It is not a regional group. We offer this Mobility Monday twice, and that's why I'm recording it, Mike. Unless you choose to do it again at 7 p.m., we will replay this recording at 7 p.m. for a group that is more focused on the West Coast. We also sometimes get people from Hawaii. So, um, and this developed during the course of the COVID. OMSA developed just before COVID, and the Mobility Monday developed in part in response to COVID to create a nexus for O&M specialists who are isolated around the country trying to deal with what we were dealing with then, to come together and share experiences and ideas on how to cope. So and it's continued beyond that to where we are now.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well, I heard some Michigan folks, and as it happens, 10 minutes before I got on here, I was catching up with my good friend Paul Panchilla, and
He's in
he's
Kansas.
still in Kansas, yeah, and it's super interested in all this stuff, and has been helpful at Good Maps. And there's a New York Times article that's in process about this, and I put them in touch with Paul because they were asking about using navigation technology outdoors for kayaking and hiking, and there's probably nobody that's done more of that than Paul. Uh, so Lucas, I'll let you prompt me along the way, but I'll give some overview information and maybe some specific things that people may not know about. I'm going to assume that most everybody has a pretty good understanding of outdoor navigation, accessible outdoor navigation, the various apps that are available. And I will draw some comparisons between indoors and outdoors, just because none of you will have had the experience indoors yet, and it's outdoors will be a good reference point for you. A lot of the things are the same. The concepts of needing accessible information is very much the same. Outdoors, it, I think for a lot of sighted people, navigation is about oriented navigation. Just tell me where to turn and get me there. Whereas for a blind person, look around information or location information is super important because you just don't know what's out there, particularly when you're in a car, when you're walking as well. So the same principle applies indoors. Often we go into a building and we get to a specific place. If it's an airport, you're going to a gate, and maybe you find a coffee shop along the way or the restrooms. What else is around? You can't make informed choice if you don't know what's out there. So I've always thought, since I started working with this stuff first in 1994, the thing that I was really excited about was the location information. Even in my neighborhood that I thought I knew well and I'd walked many times, I would find out there's some business or some cross street that's on the other side of the road from where I walk all the time. I would discover that it's there. It's the same thing indoors. You think about malls, for example, and I'm not a big fan of going shopping. And a lot of it is because I'm usually stuck following somebody else around and going where they want to go. And it's not easy to separate and go do my thing. I think if my whole attitude about it would change once the malls have good indoor navigation and I can just browse. While somebody's in the women's clothing store, I can go see what else is out there. Go find a beer or find a, well, I would have said a Radio Shack, but they're out of business. An Apple store, something else, and with this kind of information available to you in the same way that it is outdoors, in terms of indoor points of interest, I would be able to do that. And uh, a key part of all of this is that in order to make this viable, a product preferably is appealing to more than just blind people. Otherwise, we end up with things like braille displays that are $2, 3, $5,000 because it's a small niche market. And same thing goes for accessible navigation. If you're only making it for blind people and it doesn't piggyback mainstream technology, then it's likely to be more expensive. A good example of that is the app that we started about 8, 9 years ago which was called the Seeing Eye GPS in the U.S. and Canada, and it had a different name for Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. But that was a subscription-based app, and everybody's used to free apps or maybe 99 cents. Those apps are economically viable if somebody buys a million of them. Well, in the blindness market, you're just not going to sell that many. And since we didn't have pretty graphics, the CNI GPS was a subscription base for I think $69 or $199 for lifetime, which is a lot. It just came out free. So now that I'm at Good Maps, we were able to pull it over and get an agreement to make it free. And so now we have what's called Good Maps Outdoors, still sponsored by the CNI and by Guide Dogs Australia and hopefully others. But now that it's a free app, it becomes available to a lot more people. But in terms of the general market, I think what's really cool about indoor navigation to make it viable. All right, the dogs decided to go wild to play. All right, guys, you're going to steal the show from me. But the indoor maps are something that can be appealing for a lot of different reasons. One would be sighted people could also use them. You come in and you typically have that kiosk and you say, here I am, where do I want to go? And you look it up on a map. And I say, all right, hey, Johnny, get over here. So Yuli being almost 10 years old, she's the instigator. Johnny, that's it. The benefits of being outdoors on a sunny day, I had to have a meeting out here rather than just being inside.
Absolutely.
But a few distractions in the equation. Come here.
While we're distracted, let me introduce Nora Griffin Shirley, who somehow I forgot, and also Kristen Opplinger, who's joined us in the
All right.
interim. So,
Hey, Mike, tell Donnie I say hi.
Yeah, I will. And that's probably why she got all fired up when you showed up on the screen.
Mike, it's Nora.
Hi, Nora. So the multi-purpose aspect is what I was just talking about, and that would be for sighted users, first responders, asset tracking. A lot of places need to keep track of where stuff is, particularly hospitals. So if you can sell them, those venue owners, on the fact that there's multi-purpose to this whole indoor mapping and scanning business, and you get them to pay the freight, then that's how we make the apps free. So it's important to know that's part of the equation. And if people know of any kind of facility in their town that you think might want to get mapped or is really complicated to get around, or a mall, as I mentioned before, would be a good target. And then certainly bring them to our attention, and we can give them this pitch about the multiple purposes of using this stuff. I think the same as with outdoor navigation for blind people, you don't have an alternative. Sighted people do have an alternative. They have printed signs. When we don't have an alternative other than just going with a friend or family member, then all of a sudden it's not just that would be nice tool or that's convenient. This is an essential tool. And so I think it's super important, if you aren't already, really incorporating navigation and starting with outdoor before you even have indoor navigation. If your students are familiar with the two things that get blurted to them all the time, it's going to be the heading and distance. So Starbucks is at 11 o'clock, 400 feet. And then you try to make it at 12 o'clock, and then it's going to be 200 feet, 100 feet, 25 feet, you've arrived. And once people start to process that basic information and it kind of goes into the background and they can mental image where things are, then the whole navigation business, indoors or outdoors, becomes much better. So I'm a big fan of every time you start an O&M lesson, turn on one of the apps. It could be Good Maps or it could be another one, Blind Square, Los Rios, Soundscape, Nearby Explorer. You use any app for 5 minutes because they're all going to give the same thing in terms of distance and direction to points of interest. And once people process that, then they're much better at navigating. one of the cool things about being able to have indoor navigation at the CNI is it's not a terribly complex place to get around, but it's an opportunity for people, for students to start using an app and get a feeling for how does it work indoors, as well as being a benefit, particularly when you think of the kind of campus aspect of this, which is I need to get from the stairs to the dining room, which is a straight shot. But what if I want to get out to the gazebo? And there's a bit of a loop and a couple of different turns that you could get sidetracked into. Being able to navigate indoors and outdoors is part of what's really the new pioneering frontier of navigation. It's indoor and outdoor, and they need to seamlessly work together. So that's part of what we're pioneering at the CNI. We're just now working on a campus mode, and as this gets released to the CNI, then we'll be looking at implementing that in their situation. And then also, we're working with 5 schools for the blind, mapping an indoor facility, and then also looking at their campus situation. And some of them have minimal campuses, like the Kentucky School for the Blind, South Dakota. I mean, in colder places, you obviously want to make things a little bit easier and more convenient indoors. But there's secondary buildings that people can navigate to. And so APH has funded this student project where we're going to be researching the navigation needs of students and then working with them to understand, well, what is it we can add to the Good Maps Explore app that will make it more conducive for students. And a good part of that may be just having a curriculum to teach these things, like I'm talking about with heading and direction. And do you need 5 minutes with every lesson, or is it better to concentrate all in one lesson? And there may be other features. We might gamify things, make it fun for kids. You know, you get brownie points for a lot of people have their step apps, and you know how well that works for getting people motivated. We're thinking about gamifying factors that might help with students. So this APH student project is just underway and will go on for over a year. We'll have 5 students and 2 O&Ms at each one of those schools and work with them, survey them on what the current situation is, and then what we want to have that baseline so then we can see what we can improve over time. Which reminds me of as we're selecting those students, and they immediately were thinking of, let's get our high functioning techie um, students who can navigate well. And I always refer people back to the thing that Lucas told me, probably back from those Strider days, which is, wow, this is going to be amazing for those people who can't find their way out of a paper bag. And that's absolutely true. If there's somebody who's motivated, they really do want to find their way around, but they don't have the tools to do it for whatever reason, all of a sudden you're giving them a tool to develop confidence and to have the ability to find things and to explore and to know that they can get back to a safe place, to their comfort zone if they need to. Any of you who've heard me speak before will hear me refer to my term, the power of getting unlost. It's a lot more fun to get lost if you know you can get unlost. So when I go into an airport, I never take the meet and greet person because there's always extra time. And once I'm through security, I know it's all good. So I like to get lost and just figure it out on my own. And a lot of times it means that you go into the wrong leg of the terminal, wrong hallway, and then you figure out, oh, that wasn't it. I go back and do another one. And in the meantime, you're building a mental map. So indoors, having the ability to have this tool means that I can much more easily get unlost. I don't have to just ask the passersby. If I've opted not to have a meet and greet person, I'm on my own until I get to my gate. And my rule of thumb in asking passersby, where is something, I ask 5 people and average the answers because people are often guessing. They don't see the signs, but they think they know where something is, and it'd be better off if they said no thanks or no, I can't help you, rather than making something up just to be to try to help out. So I'm already using a little bit of indoor navigation in some airports, even using things like the Seeing Eye app, or as we now call it, Good Maps Outdoors or Blind Square. GPS does leak into some indoor environments, and you can utilize that to some extent. We don't yet have any airports that are using Good Maps Explore, but part of the equation is we want to have navigation not only in the facilities that we map, but we also want to be able to take advantage of places that are mapped already. So most airports are mapped. So when you load your United app and you arrive at your gate, it'll say your gate F9, your connecting flight is at B7. It'll take you 19 minutes to walk there, and here's the route. And they show you on a map. Not accessible. If we can just make that accessible, then a blind person doesn't need the meet and greet, and they can go on their own and have the enjoyment of finding their own way, but also maybe wander around in between because they can get unlost with that accessibility. All Target stores have very precise navigation down to a foot. Home Depots and a lot of other stores. Now that's courtesy of lighting, LED lighting that has the positioning built in. So this is different than what Good Maps is doing, and I'll come to that in a second. But those lighting systems provide very precise mapping and navigation. So next time you go into a Target, pick a product and it'll show you where it is and what aisle it's on. It'll be a red dot. Your position will be a blue dot. And then as you move towards it, it's not giving you a route, but it's just allowing you to know when you're getting closer and closer to the product. Because most stores are sort of grid layouts anyway. Just follow the blue dot to the red dot and you find your product. That's not accessible. I can pick the product in Target. I just don't get the directional information. So we're working with the company that makes those lighting systems called Acuity to try to also incorporate their technology and their mapped facilities into what we're doing.
Fantastic.
So now it's a 3-year federal grant from the Department of Health and Human Services, NIDLR. And the way that the Good Maps is mapping is based on the goal that we wanted to have infrastructure-less, infrastructure-free positioning. So what that means is when you have to put up Bluetooth beacons, which is a mediocre way of mapping indoors, it costs money to put them up and to maintain them, change the batteries. If you have them hardwired, then it's even more expensive. So that was really the first thing that started happening 5-7 years ago. And now with cameras evolving the way that they are and with LiDAR becoming less expensive, there's an alternative technique. And so Good Maps started out using beacons, and then about a year later moved on or switched over to LiDAR camera based. What that looks like is we go into a building and our mapper, our scanner guy, has a big old backpack with a turret on it. Looks like Ghostbusters. And he walks through the store or office building or whatever it is. And that LiDAR is picking up all of the environment. It gets a 3D image, very precise, like every square inch has a geo reference. And so it captures this 3D cloud image with all this detail of the building, and it takes about as long to do that as walking the facility. He has to do a little bit of orientation ahead of time to figure out where he's going to go, but in most, let's say 100,000 square foot buildings, it might take him 4 hours to walk through it. And you saw that in the Seeing Eye, right, Lucas?
I did. It was fascinating to watch. I don't know. This is a primitive way of doing this, but I can try and share this image on via my camera. You can see the fellow there with that backpack on, and in our dining room at the Seeing Eye, which some of you know. and it's a backpack, and he's got a big turret on the top, and it's got all kinds of bells and whistles and wires and attached to it. And he was a lovely guy, and he came up and mapped. The seeing eye is, as Mike points out, is not a huge building, but it's not tiny either. And it took we walked through it once just to have him make a plan of how to attack it, because there can't be any loose ends. It all has to connect on the map as he makes it. So he had to make a plan of how to walk through the building, and we didn't do everything. We did the student areas, and I would say the actual mapping itself took less than an hour.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty fast. When you start thinking of mapping all of the buildings everywhere, then even that seems like it's taking too long. But this is why there's robots being developed to do this kind of thing. Amazon's working on that, and this this is not the first time people have started working on the last few years. I remember talking to David Ross at the Atlanta VA 15 years ago, and they were bringing in robots to do the same sort of thing in their facility. What's changing really is that cameras are getting better, LiDAR is getting cheaper, and so it's just taken time for these technologies to evolve to the point where it really is economically practical. You don't have to have LiDAR on your phone in order to use this, by the way. So the next part of the process is this 3D image is converted into a 2D floor plan, a map of the building for each floor. And then those floors are obviously related to each other. So if there's an elevator and your destination's on the floor above you, that you got to get redirected to an elevator or stairs to get up there. But this 2D image is created, and now you have the scan, the map, and then the positioning is done by you, the user, with your camera. So as with any technology, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. One aspect of camera-based positioning is you have to have the camera out. You could have it in a pocket. It's using the back-facing camera, so you put it in your pocket. You could put it in a pouch on a backpack strap. There's a really neat pouch I use called Timbuktu. It's just an elastic tight pocket that Velcros onto my backpack strap, and I use that. Some people have lanyards, but you do have to have the camera out. And what's different than outdoor navigation is you don't typically use outdoor navigation for a couple hundred yards. You go on a walk, or you're in a car, you're on a bus. These things take place over some miles. In indoor, it's much different. It's couple hundred yards at most walking through a building. So it's no big deal to have your camera out and to hold it and point it around. And that gives you the ability to determine your position. That camera picks up whatever little section of the wall or a doorway, it compares it against the 3D image, and that's what determines being able to know where you are and where other things are relative to you. So you're now going to get information like reception desk is at 11 o'clock, 27 feet. Restrooms are at left 100 feet. And the venue owner controls what's available for users to see or not. Staff members might have one level of access. Customers might have another level. There's buildings that aren't exposed to the public at all. It's only for those corporate members, and they're assuming, they've got a front desk with security and everything. Nobody gets to wander around on their own anyway, so there's no reason to provide that mapping to the public. But that's a big aspect of making sure that the map data is secure, and people are worried about privacy and anonymizing any kind of images that are used. But that's how it's being handled, and the venue owner has the ability to control all of that and to rename things. If somebody's office name changes, they go in and just type in a new one. If you download the Good Maps Explore app, so Good Maps, one word, space, Explore, EXPLORE, you'll get the free app, download it, And it's meant to work with VoiceOver. It will work without it for you people who aren't using VoiceOver. But if you go to the More tab, there's a venue list, indoor venues, and you can see all of the ones that are publicly distributed. And you can explore those virtually. So this is a good place to start with somebody, to show those students if you're starting to incorporate this into your curriculum a little bit. Pull up one of those virtual locations and see what's in there. Pick something like the Speed Museum in Louisville is neat because there's going to be interesting stuff versus an office building. And then you can explore it in two virtual ways. One is you scroll through the list, or you filter the list, say I only want food or something. You pick a spot and then you set it as a destination, and then it virtually walks you through the turns in some average 3 miles an hour or something like that, just so you get a sense of what it would be like to hear the turning commands. Or you can use the look around mode, and that means you just point your phone in whatever direction you want. So as you rotate your phone around, you point it north, and now you're hearing everything in that direction virtually in that building. If you're not obviously there, it's not what's north of you where you're sitting, but it's north in that particular venue setting, and the points are announced to you by proximity, closest first, moving away to the furthest away. And then if you want, you can pick one of those and get the route to it. That's your best way to see it in the near future, or if you're at the CNI, hopefully you'll be able to see it there within a month or so. And then there's more and more places. We're trying to get locations regionally set up. So one thing you might think of if you don't have something in your area, I mean, I heard Seattle, for example. I'm going to be up there on Monday, and I'd love to have something in the Seattle area. There's been a lot of interest from Sound Transit and the Seattle Airport about accessibility, and at University of Washington, they're doing a bunch of stuff. So it'd be nice in each one of these areas to have a location that then if somebody's interested in purchasing good maps, they could go into that facility and see it, and they're much more likely to purchase it if they can see a demo. In Portland, it's at Portland State University, for example. In Berkeley, California, there's a spot. Nothing in Kalamazoo yet, but given the given the Western involvement in this stuff over the years, that would seem like a key location to have. So just keep that all in mind. But you can virtually explore for now until you have something in your area. That's quite a brain dump for you. I think somebody might have put something in the chat, but let's just open it up for questions, clarifications, anything people want to talk about.
What we have in chat is Go Broncos right now. But anyway.
Oh, I see. Yeah, our Good Maps person, Evelyn, was just drove down, I think, from Louisville to see the game yesterday with Dallas Cowboys and the Broncos.
Wrong Broncos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Western Michigan Broncos.
Oh, those Broncos. Huh.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah.
I just, I have to say that we were talking about doing this, and it was, the pricing of it was quite reasonable, and of course the cost to the user is free. So it was an investment on the part of the school in doing this. Just to outline how we intend to use it really quickly is, our students arrive, and it would be really cool if they had an advanced view of the building that was effective. So, the intent would be to educate people on what's available and that they can look on Good Maps and download the app and explore the building before they actually get there, and then explore it virtually, and then explore it in reality for the first few days before people get their dogs. That's our process. People arrive at the school and spend a couple of days with us trying to figure out what match to make, but from the student end, they're learning their way around so that once they get their dogs, they can accurately direct them. So we're hoping to learn a lot about how to use this well to implement that. And then the other thing that we're looking at is at the other end, then we would probably turn it off, because our supposition is that people learning to use their dogs and trying to use a technology at the same time would be overwhelming. And it would be like trying to learn to drive and learn to use a cell phone at the same time. It's probably a good idea to separate those things, so that we're thinking that at the beginning of training, once people have dogs, we would not allow access to good maps while people are working with their dogs. But then maybe turn it on again in the last week of class to help people figure out how to integrate supplemental information into good guide dog practice as well. So we're really excited about this possibility and looking very much forward to it. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah,
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that, because this is something we've talked about for a long time when we first introduced GPS, and I'd come back there and say, well, I don't want to have to memorize the high school route. What if I just put it into my GPS? And there was always lots of skepticism about that. The difference was I was an accomplished user, and so I was good. I was an expert in the GPS before I got my dog. The worst scenario is to be a rookie with the dog and a rookie with the technology, which is going to be the case for most people. So this is one of the key things that we're considering as we figure out how to teach students, whether it's a cane or a dog. You don't want to be learning two things at once like that. And so it's a big part of why it's important for you guys to introduce people to this ahead of time, so that it does become second nature and it's not something that's distracting the student. Now they're listening to the device and not to the dog or the cane.
Very difficult integration, really hard. So, I mean, I have trouble driving with the GPS sometimes. You get distracted by, where am I going? Oh, gotta watch the road too. So open it up for questions. Thank you very much, Mike. Questions, comments?
Melina here from Seattle. I'd love to see some sort of Seattle markers and be able to use this, but the integration piece is where I'm at with two middle and high school students. Sorry, FedEx has just shown up outside on a neighbor's door, and the dogs have decided that this is very important information to share with me and us. So hopefully you can still hear me. But the integration piece is, I had for the high school student, for example, just getting him used. It's a brand new phone for him over the last month and a half. And so this is the first time he's actually using the device to even consider it as a travel tool, as a travel aid, right? And to get information from it. And I had to stop him from using it when he was walking. He just kept putting it up to his face to use his low vision to kind of see the screen. And then I had to have him put it in his pocket, and then we walked somewhere and then he pulled it out again. But trying to figure out how to split those, introduce the technology, have it be useful pieces of information for them in that moment, and then put that away until they get to a point where they can, do one earbud in and have the phone and the voiceovers going, and they're just using the cane and listening to the environment. They're integrating all of that. But I guess my question, looping all the way back, is how would you recommend the very first thing you should do for a student who's just getting a phone as a tool, and they're not used to it in any way yet? Like, they know about kind of cell phones and things, and they'll listen to movies or music on it on their parents' phones, but this is their first one. How they can, trying to figure out, where should we start? What would you recommend?
Right. So here's the sequence. Number one, make sure they have headphones that don't cover their ears. So these are Aftershok's Open Comm. They're in front of my ear. The newest model has this little boom mic, so it's closer to your mouth. It works much better with Siri, and so you want to have that. The Bose frames glasses, or if people want to wear dark glasses, That's the other option. And there's a few other off-market versions of these bone conduction aftershocks, but they are an essential tool. And then number two is start getting familiar with the app when you're stationary in virtual mode or just looking around what's near your house in outdoor mode. Either way, it's fine. Just get used to it sitting at a desk. If you have if it's a Braille user, it's great if they can do this on a Braille note or a Braille sense, because there's an Android version of these apps. They will run on those units. And then next, start using it in a vehicle. So it's still no cane or dog involved. You're just using this without those mobility tools. The car is a lot of fun. You can hear well, you're relaxed. There's no mobility thing. So once you've gone through these stages of virtual, around the house, in the car, then you might go sighted guide after that. So there's still no mobility. And then the last advanced stage, I mean, the GPS navigation 101 is on your own, depending on the student, maybe with somebody shadowing them. But certainly it's not the first thing you want to be doing in the sequence is heading off on your own with the phone.
Thank you for that.
That
Yeah,
integration,
thank you for asking.
great question, and that integration is key. Other questions?
Anybody else?
Hey, Mike, it's Kristen. So it looks like right now you've got the two separate apps for the outdoor and the indoor. Do you guys have any plans of integrating the two of those later on?
No, they're very different code bases, so we won't see outdoors being integrated. Something could change, but the Good Maps Explorer does both already. It doesn't do as many outdoor features as the other one. So that's the reason that we decided to have both apps. So for the sophisticated outdoor use, for breadcrumb mode and all these things, you use Good Maps Outdoors. For just basic functionality, use Explore. And then of course, when it comes to the things we're talking about at the CNI campus and elsewhere, they're going to be using Explore for both indoor and outdoor.
Gotcha. Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi, this is Abby Karoma. I have a question for you. I had pulled it up on my phone while driving, and I think I can adjust the rate at which landmarks are announced. And I didn't I didn't pull it up while I was driving. I pulled it up, set it in my passenger seat. I saw Lucas's face there. But just to test out kind of what you were saying, Mike, about using it as a preview while you're driving. And I really enjoyed that it was, naming off a lot of locations ahead of the car. But do you have any suggestions for how to optimize that experience? Because it was, as you said, like looking kind of the direction that I was going, and in terms of that kind of 360 view that someone might have while they're driving, it wasn't giving a lot of the landmarks that were on either side of the vehicle. And I don't think that's exactly what the purpose of this app is, but even when my student was in the car, we pulled it up and she said, I liked it a lot, but I felt like it was missing out some of the side features when it was facing forward. So what would your suggestions
Yeah.
be?
Were you using Explore or Outdoors?
I was using Explorer.
Okay. Well, this will apply to both of them, but Outdoors has a lot more settings in terms of the points of interest density that is going to be announced, and you can control things. It has things like when you're in a car, it stops announcing points of interest over 40 miles an hour. You can change that or not, or under 15 miles an hour, things like that, just based on your speed. So the challenge is too much or too little information. Explore doesn't yet have a lot of settings to control that, so we try to determine what is the optimal amount so the user is not overwhelmed. In a lot of places, if you announced every point of interest two things would happen. One is the user would be overwhelmed, and the second is you would be long past something by the time it got around to saying those things. Because voiceover, even we have it cranked up at a pretty good speed, it takes a while to say these things, and that's one of the challenges with indoor navigation too. Is it says turn left in 27 feet and then turn now, and you can miss the turn, but the accuracy is 2 or 3 feet, but it's easy to miss the turn just based on the timing of voiceover.
You're trying
The
to target
way,
a doorway or a hallway, for example, you might go right past it before you.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and particularly when there's two quick turns in a row, so you got to turn left, turn right. If you just say turn left, then you wait a second until you confirm the user has turned, and then you say turn right, you might have missed that next hallway. So these are things that are being adjusted in software, but they're part of the challenges of indoor navigation. But back to your outdoor situation, I think on the Good Maps Outdoors, it does a scan every 15 seconds for new points of interest. So it's going to miss a ton of stuff on purpose for these reasons of just not overwhelming. The way around that is at any time you can say, show me all points of interest in 360 degrees, or you can use the look around mode to point the phone and hear what's in a given direction.
I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful. Thank you. And I am just like really excited about this app and everything that it's opening doors for. It's exciting. So thank you.
When
you.
you said you've been on the call the whole time, so you've been experimenting with Good Maps Explorer beforehand, is that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did not jump in my car and test this out
I
during
was
our
watching
Zoom
you. You
meeting.
did. Yeah, okay, good.
This was in I think it was 2 weeks ago. I just was fiddling around with it in my commute between students, trying to maximize time. So yeah, it's an exciting app.
Very cool. Good. Thanks.
And I do have one more question, Mike. I am wondering if you could just briefly describe how you preview. You mentioned previewing a route before you start walking it. How do you do that using the app?
In Good Maps Outdoors, you can pick a destination, choose a pedestrian route or vehicular route, and then there's a detail button, and you just go through that list, and it tells you each turn, so you can think about it, you can picture where that turn is, what does it mean. It's not it's not just so that's part of understanding the route before you go. So once you're moving and you hear those announcements in action, it'll make a lot more sense to you. The virtual mode was the other way that we talked about using it with Good Maps Explorer, virtually exploring outdoors or indoors, both ways. So for example, if I want to go to some store that's likely in a big outdoor mall area like a CVS, I would search for the nearest CVS. I would set it as my virtual position, and then I would use the look around mode to point around as though I was at the CVS so I could see what else is there. And chances are there's going to be some food there, a coffee place, other businesses, and now I can know what else is in that vicinity. And I find that really useful, particularly if I'm using something like an Uber and I want to have a better idea of where to get dropped off, where to get picked up, whether I'm going to have lunch in between, and all these other decisions that would be part of your travel scenario.
Things like tapas bars, for example.
No topless bars.
Tapas. I said tapas.
Okay. Yeah, and the other thing I haven't mentioned is another tool in Windows. On the Windows PC, there's an application we developed it's now called Sendero Maps, and the San Francisco Lighthouse hosts it. And that allows you to explore in a much more comprehensive way. I still use it. We discontinued it in 2018 or after that year, but it's still a really good way to use your PC to steer around using the arrow keys block by block and understand things in whatever way works best for you. So if you if you can, if somebody has a PC, get that app and show them how to use it. Anybody else? Going on.
Well, Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. We recorded it, and unless you wanted to, I wasn't sure if you wanted to present again to the 7 o'clock group, 7 o'clock Eastern time, but you're welcome to. Otherwise, we will use you virtually, as long as the recording works. Again, I'm just so excited about this technology. I can't wait to get this up and running and trying it at Seeing Eye. We're really excited about it. It's I think it could be a game changer. Now, I remember you when you were talking about what's going on at Target at Home Depot. That's not at all related to the old talking lights experiment from 15 years ago or so, is it?
It is a modern version of that. But talking lights, or the approach with that was point my device around, and when it picks up the sign, then it announces to me on my device. That's a little bit different. And then you have things like Step Here from Israel, where you can actually trigger the actual sign. So if it's above a doorway, you can trigger it with the Bluetooth app now, by the way, and it'll announce that sign will say, women's restroom or whatever through its speaker.
It'd be fun to have there's some other newer devices, systems coming online fairly soon. We're going to have a presentation sometime down the line about an AI-based device. Are you familiar with any of these approaches?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of cool stuff, and that's a fun thing. When talking to you, Lucas, offline is you understand this stuff. You've been tracking it for years, and so whether it's APSs or whatever, there's so many products that could be integrated with a mapping system like Good Maps. So even though we've come a long ways, we got a long way to go too.
Yep, it's going to be fun to watch. Glad you're still at it. Thank you, Mike, very much. Johnny, I'm sorry we interrupted your play session.
She's happy. She would stay on my lap indefinitely, so as long as I'm sitting down.
Great, good.
All right, well, thanks very much, and I will let you use the recording later on. I would have volunteered to do another session, but I think we covered everything pretty completely in this session. So hello to this group and hello to the Western group.
Thanks very much. Melina's going. Thank you all very much for coming. It's been a pleasure having you. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Mobility Monday, which will not be in December, I don't think. Or we'll let you know. I can't remember anymore. All right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That Mobility Monday, I think December 13th, if I'm not mistaken.
December 13th. Okay, great. Thank you.
Unless decided otherwise. But
let me check and see if I can find it on my schedule.
Kristen or Lucas, do you know what will be the agenda? I don't, or not decided yet.
I don't know if we had a speaker for that one. Sometimes we just
Working
do.
on that.
Oh, we are working on that? Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Since I missed the last board meeting, so
Yeah.
I'm a little out of the loop, but
December 13th, it could be right. Okay, we'll find out. Good. All right.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Nora.
guys. Good to
Bye.
have you all. Bye-bye.